The 4-section structure is gone. What are the differences between the current version of the GMAT and this new version? And are those differences good? Are they bad? Do they help you with your prep or do they hurt you? Let's find out. So let's talk about the old structure of the GMAT, or the current structure. We have the quant section, or quantitative reasoning. This is math, right? And it's 31 questions in 62 minutes, or about 2 minutes per question. We got the verbal section. It's about 36, not about, it is exactly 36 questions in 65 minutes. So similar, little different, little bit less time per question. We've got IR, or integrated reasoning. That's 12 questions in 30 minutes. And we've got AWA, or the essay, and that's going to be 1 question in 30 minutes. So we got 4 sections on this test. And if you add up all of that time, it's over 3 hours. All right. It's 3 hours, 7 minutes without any of the breaks, right? So this is a long, long exam. And then on top of that, we can't change our answers. All right. So every section, as we get a question, we have to answer it. There's no skipping, right? There's no skipping and coming back. There's no putting in a guess and then changing it later. You cannot change any of your answers on the existing GMAT. This is one of the hardest things about the test from working with students, right? With other exams, you know, there's strategies of, oh, I got to move on because this question's taking too long and I can always come back. On the current version of the GMAT, you got to move on, but you can't come back. So you're sacrificing questions. You're saying, I'm gonna get this wrong. And that's like a serious mental barrier for a lot of folks with this exam. Let's talk about the new version and how that might change some of that logic. So the new structure of the GMAT in the Focus Edition is, we still got quant. We've still got a quantitative reasoning section. However, it's only 21 questions in 45 minutes. All right. So this is a much shorter section, both in terms of questions and in terms of minutes. And you'll also notice that the timing is slightly different, right? With the old quant section, we had 2 minutes per question. Here we have slightly more than 2 minutes per question. Is it enough to make a difference? I'm not sure, but a little bit more time per question. On the verbal section, we have 23 questions in 45 minutes. So same section length between the two, couple of extra questions in that verbal section. Here I want to note that, again, we have slightly similar timing. I'll note here actually that while quant got a little bit more time per question, here verbal gets a little bit less time per question, which is especially interesting when we're going to go into some of the content changes that have happened between the current version and the Focus Edition. So verbal, again, a much shorter section. Now, this is where things get really weird because we don't have IR anymore. We have a new section called Data Insights. Now, this section's maybe not that new, and we'll talk about the content in it, but it's got a new name. It's called Data Insights, and Data Insights is 20 questions in 45 minutes. So you'll notice here that we got 3 sections, each 45 minutes long, with different numbers of questions in the section. So you'll see that Data Insights, we've got the most time per question, then quant, and then verbal. And that's it. Those are the only 3 sections in the new Focus Edition. No AWA, the 4-section structure is gone. We've got 3 sections, 45 minutes a pop, for a grand total of 2 hours and 15 minutes. Much shorter. And then here's an interesting piece. Used to be you could not change any answers. With the new version, when you finish a section, provided you have extra time at the end of the section, you will be taken to a review screen. And on that review screen, you can look at any of your answers and you can have bookmarked them in advance as you go through the section. And you may change up to 3 answers. within that section. So this is very interesting, right? So because we're only changing up to 3, the test retains its ability to be question adaptive, right? It's going to be changing the difficulty of questions as you go through the section, right? Difficulty a little harder, a little easier, a little the same, depending on how you're performing, right? But now you can change some of those answers at the end, but only 3 per section. So what are the takeaways from these changes in the structure? First takeaway, it is much shorter. All right. If you have taken standardized tests before, you'll know most of them are long, and that's part of it, right? That's part of the pain of this exam, is that it takes a really long time and you're getting really tired at the end. Now, with this new version of the exam, you'll still have the option to do section ordering. You can still choose, are we going to do quant first or verbal first or data insights first? That still exists. But because the exam's a lot shorter, you're not going to have that same massive fatigue that you'll have at the end of the current version, right? There's a difference between 2:15 and 3 hours 7, right? So it's much shorter. You're going to have less of that struggle with fatigue and with maybe a little bit of time management. All right, so Focus Edition, much, much shorter. There's going to be more decision making around changing answers. So again, like I mentioned, this I'm still working out my take on, because you can only change 3 answers. So that means that you're going to be able to make some changes, but not maybe as many as you would make. So it's not like we're returning to our normal standardized testing strategy of, hey, I'm just going to, guess and then I'll come back, or I'll just not put an answer and come back. One, you have to put an answer when you come back. You cannot just not put an answer and then come back. You have to put in an answer. All right. And you can only change 3 of them. So that means that really it's kind of like a hybrid strategy. It's kind of similar to what we've been doing, where we're going, okay, I'm going to do my best, but I'm going to move on, with the knowledge that I can come back to exactly 3 questions, or fewer than 3 questions, no more. So it's actually maybe even more decision making than before, right? We're going, okay, I gotta move on, and maybe I'm gonna have to sacrifice this question, but depending on how I do on the later questions, maybe I won't have to sacrifice it. It's really kind of complex. So I'm still figuring out exactly what my advice is around this, but it is more decision making, and it's slightly more complex decision making. I'm really excited for more official prep to come out, and by more I mean any official prep to come out, because then all of us will get to try it and we'll get to see how this feels, and I'm going to be able to firm up my advice. But all of this to say, the ability to change 3 answers per section is going to kind of change our approach to how we're taking this test.